November 12th, 2024 of my 144 series. Quick recap. We are relearning our skies, how the sun and moon work within our skies. This is the tropical system, the science of the universe. Much of astrology today got obfuscated with a completely different system, and that's why most people are confused out there of how the sun and moon actually move. So we're bringing that all back and learning how the sun and moon move. The reason I call it the 144 series is because the sun does 1 degree a day, incline or decline, and the moon does an average of 13.22 degrees a day, incline or decline, making 144. Let's go back in time a little bit. We started on the first day. That was the first crescent in Sagittarius back in video number 1. So now I will show you the 7th day, which the 7th day in this correct system is always the half waxy moon. Okay, the half waxy moon. This is the 7th day from the first crescent. It is exactly half. This marks the end of Aquarius. So the first crescent was in Sagittarius, and 7 days later will always be the end of the third sign. So the half waxy moon is at the end of the third sign from where it started, and then the full moon will be at the end of the third sign from this moon. And that's how it moves through its cycles. So obviously this sky wheel is something that's important to memorize. Because then you can walk outside and know exactly what sign, height the moon is in the sky at all times. All you have to know is the sky wheel memorized in order from Aries being number 1, and then the first crescent day. And then you will be able to know what sign the moon is just by looking at it. Pretty cool. So let's just review what I said in that video. What I was pointing out is that you can tell what height or sign, we call them signs, but they're heights in the sky. We've established that already. That's the tropical system. The moon's movement between the tropics. So the Tropic of Cancer to the Tropic of Capricorn, and then back up to Cancer. How that looks on the map is movement between the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer, and back down again. So it's constantly moving between the tropics, just like the sun. So each of these sections for the moon is 2 or 3 circles. So 2 or 3 circles, and each circle equals a day. So 2, 3 circles, 2, 3 circles, 2, 3 circles. So when you know where the first crescent is at, when you have that date, and I always just go out and look. When you know that day, that first crescent day, you can know what sign the rest of the moon is in by knowing this little hack, which is this. The 7th day, like I said, will always be a half waxy moon. But what sign that is in is dependent on the sign it started in. First sign, second sign, third sign. The end of the third sign will be the half waxy moon from the start at the first crescent. So if it started in Sagittarius, the half moon will be Aquarius. Then from there, it'll be 3 more signs through Pisces, through Aries, through the end of Taurus, and then that will be the full moon. And that is perfectly correct because the sun is still here in Scorpio and they're always across from each other. So 3 more signs, Gemini, Cancer, the end of Leo will be a half waning moon. So what that means is that Gemini the moon will look very high in the sky compared to these other ones you see on the video. It's going to start getting higher. And then in Leo, it'll be on its way down, getting a little bit more towards the mid sky. It's moving back down the vortex. So then in 3 more signs, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, it will enter back into Sagittarius as the black moon, like this. And you see it incorrectly on calendars out there like this, and they call this the new moon. That is not correct. That's the way they obfuscate all this to keep you off the track. So the end of the 3rd sign again would be back in Sagittarius, where it was both day 1, the 1st sign, and the 13th sign. 1, 1, 3. So 1st sign and 13th sign. The moon repeats the sign it started in as the black moon or transparent moon. I call it both. So you see that? It moves in 3s like this at the ends of the 3rd signs. So you can know that it's back in Sagittarius where it started when it's not visible anymore. And then the very next day after it finishes this phase for 2.5 days, it'll be a 1st crescent here in Capricorn. So Capricorn will be here, and all these move 1 sign. So for example, the full moon will move to Gemini, because at the same time the sun is moving and the sun moves down to Sagittarius. Now they're exactly 180 degrees apart from each other. And then this half waning moon will move down. So the whole moon cycle shifts through. So this is another reason why there can never be 13 months in a year. That is silly talk for people who didn't do their homework. Point those people in the direction of these videos so that they can learn how the moon moves properly. Now here's the 8th day. Okay, 8th day moon at its peak position. There's that same tree. And now we can compare it. This is 8th day moon is the beginning of Pisces. You can see how it's higher up on its vortex than it was in Aquarius, than it was in Capricorn, or than it was in Sagittarius. So in order to see that, you have to look at its peak position, which is about 6 hours after its rise time. And that would be its peak closest to you. And that's where you can see the height on the vortex. And then the 9th day. All right, this is a 9th day moon. It's not quite to that tree that I used to my marker yet. So, but I did want to get a video of it just to show, oh, the cloud moved in front of it. But I wanted to show how it is, the light on it is growing. Obviously it's growing to a full moon. And as they move apart in degrees, it'll be full when they're exactly 180 degrees apart from each other. Okay, so why are we learning this? What's the point? I did a whole series on Enoch, the Luminaries, and that is a big mega series class. But then I did a mini series, which is a 4 video series, which you can go check out. But let me just point out what Enoch says here. He says, all the time that the moon is in progress with its light, it is poured into it in the presence of the sun. So what you notice is from the black moon to the 1st crescent, right? The moon is next to the sun. So they're pulling apart during the daytime. They rise about the same time on the black moon and then the first crescent, and then they start really pulling apart. And it's about 50 minutes apart. The moon is in the presence of the sun. Then what happens is the moon starts rising later and later and later. And he says, until its light is in 14 days completed in heaven. So at that point, they're 180 degrees across from each other, and they're no longer rising. Here, they rose at the same time. And then it got about 50 minutes later and later and later. So now, if the sun rose, let's say at 6 a.m. here, it's going to be rising around 6 p.m. over here. So then you start noticing the moon out during the nighttime. A lot of the reason why you don't see the moon for parts of the month is because it has either already set during the night and you're in bed, or it's out during the day. So there's only a few days there where the moon is rising during those hours where you're out during the nighttime. Most people don't notice that it's out half the month during the daytime, and most people don't notice that it's also rising, when you're sleeping. And so by the time you get up, it starts setting again. If you take your eyes off the clock, the hands keep moving. So when you put your eyes back on the clock and someone says, oh my God, the moon was here and now it's totally disappeared over there, or I can't find it. It's not a moon problem. It's a you problem. You took your eyes off the clock. So half the month, this moon will be out during the daytime, and half the month is out during the nighttime. And 2.5 days out of the month, it's too close to the sun to be seen. And that's its cycle. He goes on to say, when he's talking about the sinners, the moon shall change its laws and not be seen at the proper period, meaning that the sinners won't understand the proper periods. So therefore, the periods cannot be seen to them. The proper periods can only be seen when you follow divine law. So he's explaining this period of sin. And sin just means to go against divine law. And this is called the Luminaries, and he calls the movement law. So that's why my channel is Law of the Luminaries. And going against divine law. And the moon will not be seen at its proper period. So the current model of the moon just has it doing one loop like this. And so obviously that's not correct. So you're not going to be able to understand it during its proper period. And he goes on to say, heaven shall shine more than when illuminated by the orders of light. So the order of light is the sun, moon, and stars. And he says heaven will shine more during this sinful period. And what that means is light pollution, because the light lights up the sky so you can no longer see the order of light. And then he says, while many chiefs among the stars of authority shall err, preventing their ways and works. So the chiefs, the leaders, they continue to err in telling you how the laws of the luminaries works. And in that, he goes on to explain that because of this error, everything you do will therefore continue to be in error. The direct quote for that is, the thoughts of those who dwell on earth shall transgress within them, and they shall be perverted in all their ways. All their ways. They're not going to understand anything thrown their way until this is understood, is what Enoch is trying to say. And there is some truth in that. There's a lot of truth in that. But in learning this, a lot more truth starts to really unfold and becomes easier to see what is real and what is false, even within the truth community. It makes sense, right? Like, he's not trying to be mean. He's just trying to say, how can you ever understand anything else if this is in air? These are the gifts given to us to understand it, and it is our responsibility to understand it. And in doing so, everything else in our life will start to fall into place. You'll start to see the new earth for what it actually is, which is really the old ancient ways.